So welcome, Linda Barron's here. I just wanted to share with you some excitement I have about some things that my colleague and former student, Dean Morris, has been sharing with me about her studies and the things that she has been applying, and especially about how all of this learning that she's done is working for her. So take it away, Dean.
All right, thank you, Linda. A little bit about me, which Linda has always loved. I grew up in a family where personality type was our language that we used in our extended family also. And that continued on into my own business that I had with a staff of 15, with my business partner and I. With our staff. Then I went into the corporate world and I hired people to come in and do personality type with staff. I did it with my senior colleagues. I did it with my husband when we got married. We do it now. He does a bit of it in his psychology practice, and I now do it with my extended family. The piece that I love that's really important to me is in my work with Linda and her core practice, her core approach. It has entirely changed how I present personality type and how I work with people. So the difference, the exploratory process between core and developed self adds so much more richness for clients. And they don't feel like they're in a box when they're discovering, and they come out with even more. They come out with an understanding of, oh, this is what really energizes me, and look at how I've developed, and isn't that wonderful? However, what are the consequences? What are the upsides and downsides of that? So when clients are concerned, or they can't figure out their type, or they're frustrated, with Linda's modeling, I say to them, well, that's fantastic. Now let's do a little more exploration between core and developed. And I can see them take a deep breath and they get re-energized. So I wanted to say that, Linda. It's important.
Oh, great. Thank you. I love hearing that. And I loved how you say to them things like, that's fantastic. It's so affirming, and I try to be reassuring in my own practice, but maybe I'll take on a little other energy and use fantastic too.
Well, you've modeled it for me, but so.
Thanks. So what about your work with Essential Motivators? You've been doing some work with that for some time. What are some of the things that you found that lens particularly helpful?
Yeah. First of all, what I love about any of the lenses, Linda, that you offer, including Essential Motivators, is it's another way to look inside and better understand best fit for personality type. So if I'm doing full type with a team and people are stuck, or maybe I want to add in a little more, I bring in Essential Motivators, and it helps clarify best fit. It also gets at the core needs and drives and talents, and that is often a real awakening. Yeah, so one of the things on teams with Essential Motivators, and I love how it correlates with the patterns, and I love that Linda uses patterns, and clients love that. It correlates with talents. What it does for teams is it helps people, number one, take ownership of what motivates them and what they offer to the team so they can feel more confident and secure. It also leverages greater diversity and strength in problem solving because there develops a natural appreciation for what the improviser can offer for tactical skills, or the theorist can offer as strategic skills. And it's not that, of course we know this, but it's not that each of us can't do all of them. However, I'm going to do a little segue here, but in the Google's research on psychological safety as the most important thing to high-performing teams, psychological safety, in part, is defined as appreciating one another's significance and worth. And so through Essential Motivators, we have a better roadmap of how to show up, what motivates us, how to coach and motivate others, and then how to leverage our strengths together.
Yeah, I love that you say it's not that we can't all do these different things, but it's really about how each of those is particularly suited, skill sets is particularly suited to meeting our needs. And so we need to make space for ourselves to do that as well as others. And and to make sure that we're able to recognize what really feeds us. And one thing that I would add is that there was some research done years ago about stress, and when people had long commutes, and how stressful they found the long commute. And the long commutes were more stressful for those people who were working just for money than those people who had a sense of purpose and have it related to what was important to them. And I think Essential Motivators kind of cues into that. And that may be one good reason to learn more about what your talents are and how those talents feed into meeting your needs. So thanks.
Yeah, yes. And I had another thought there. Adding on to that, I find in individual coaching, or if I'm working with an executive and helping he or she out with other clients, understanding, so what are the stressors that's showing up with a person, and what is their role description, and how do we look at that, and what might be their essential motivator pattern, and how can we add more into their role description. So there are so many indications to help coach people to their whole self, because that's what we want to do, is ideally being able to show up to work energized and invested with our whole self.
Great. Yeah, the whole idea of wholeness and being in this new world of work, for example, is really important. And that people are tuned in to how they're already self-organized and then tap into that, as opposed to spending extra energy doing other things. I loved it that you've used that word wholeness. One of my favorites.
Me too. The congruent life.
Yeah.
And then another expression, Linda, that you use, that I use all the time with clients, is that, like every day, is that we walk around with our Be Like Me glasses on. We just do. I don't care how many years I've done this work, I still do it. And by understanding Essential Motivators and by sharing it with our clients and teams, they can put on a different lens. And instead of walking away with judgments, they can actually invite others to contribute and help. And that's another piece, of course, where it helps is with teams and understanding, are we lopsided? I was on a senior team, and it was a theorist team, now that I look back on it, and I was the only catalyst. And I was basically mocked most of the time for being the touchy-feely, soft person. So I'm sure I've done that to other people myself in the past when I didn't have that self-awareness. That team, that organization would have benefited from a greater balance and from understanding as a culture. Are we heavily weighted in theorist? I would say they were theorist and stabilizer. So to get the whole picture and to welcome everyone in, we needed to have added improviser and catalyst. So it's a great system tool analysis also, which is another piece that I love to do.
Yeah, and it really helps to have a language to talk about these differences, not that they become a label, but that it's really about just different tendencies and kind of habitual perspectives we tend to take. And it's important that we learn to take and make space for those other perspectives.
And that's why it's so great that you call it a pattern. And I always reiterate that and do a picture of a bunch of conifers, because it also calms people down that we're not, as you said, we're not labeling them.
Yeah, we're not putting them in a box.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And it works. I find taking your core approach and reiterating that these are patterns and this is a discovery and you don't have to walk out with a conclusion. You can sort through, and isn't that what our journey is about? I would say maybe 80% of the time people walk out feeling good about it. And given the work we do, that's a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, especially if if you're doing workshops with so-called prisoners who don't want to be there, which happens at times. They get sent to get fixed. Yeah.
Yes, and by talking about core and develop, then they have the choice to make their decision. And I don't really care where they end up. What I care about is that they're doing, I'd love to help them more, but there isn't time. What I care about is that they're thinking back and forth, and then they feel in control, as opposed to me saying, okay, you have a goal, and your goal is you're going to come up with your 4-letter type when you're done.
Right.
And again, that's another piece where Essential Motivator comes in, where I can offer some additional information to help people sort and clarify, see what really resonates for them.
Right. So I was just thinking so much, it's like my friend Linda Ernst, when we would train together, she would always say jokingly, now we have not ordered a tattoo artist to put this on your forehead. So we want to emphasize that it's really an identification of a pattern that you're finding a good fit for, rather than a label that you're going to live with forever and never do anything outside of that, because actually the goal is that we want to help you get outside of that and still know where you're coming from with home base. Yeah.
And that's why I love studying with Linda, because I take away these gems and I pass them along to clients, and it makes all the difference.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these thoughts with us about Essential Motivators. And I look forward to hearing more of the things that you come up with to do. And we'll look forward to working with you some more. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Linda.